Hi, I'm Steve. You're watching Gear Stuff and Things, and today we're going to get into the basics of starting your own recording setup. So let's get into it. Alright, so disclaimer before I get too far into this video. This isn't going to be super detailed. I'm just going to say the things that are basics that you need to consider when starting recording. This is for someone who may be interested in recording into their computer or tablet or smartphone, which is an option these days, and doesn't know where to start, doesn't know the basics of what you'll need. Number one, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Are you going to be recording a full band with live drums and a lot of instrumentation? Are you going to need a lot of channels of mics? That's going to change things. Are you someone who is just producing a podcast? Maybe you only need 1 to 4 inputs. You're someone who's working by yourself as a guitarist, like something like what I do here on YouTube. For basic guitar demo stuff, I don't really need a big interface. I can get away with a 1 or 2 channel interface to accomplish most of that stuff, since I'm doing a lot of drum programming and I'm just recording guitar and bass direct. Those things are things you need to consider when you are building out your setup. So let's just go from there. All right, after that, you need to consider, what are you recording into? Are you going with a Mac? Are you going with a PC? Are you using a tablet like an iPad or something? Or are you going into your smartphone? Once you've determined that, there are options there. So things to consider when recording into a computer, PC or Mac. At least have 8 gigs of RAM, preferably more. If you can start at 16, start at 16. A lot of newer model computers are already ahead of 8 at this point, but if you have an older one, for me, I use a 2015 MacBook Pro that has 16 gigs of RAM in it and a solid state drive, and that is more than enough capability for me. If you're going with PC, same thing, at least 8 to 16 gigs of RAM starting out, 250 gigs of storage, if not more, ideally 1 TB. Adding to this point, if you're using a laptop or desktop, Mac or PC to record, buy an external hard drive that is as fast, if not faster, than the internal hard drive in your computer, and record your audio into it. Why I say this is because you're taking some load off of the CPU doing it that way. So your computer needs to be able to process all this information you're sending to it. So you've got drums coming at it, you've got, guitar tracks, processings for amp plugins, things of that nature, all this stuff that your computer has information coming and coming and coming. And you need to be able to get that to work well without overloading your system. So the best thing you can do is dump the audio into a separate hard drive, let the computer take the weight of your plugins and post-processing. Moving from there, once you've decided whether you're using Mac or PC, or if you're using a tablet, there are interface options there too. You need to decide how you're getting the audio into your computer. For me, I've been using a handful of things for a few years, so my main 2-input interface has been this Steinberger UR22. It's 2 dual-purpose inputs, so XLR, 1/4 inch, they both work both ways. So you can record 2 things at once, 2 microphones at once. You can record a mic and a guitar at once with no issues whatsoever. Basic stuff. Actually, this one actually has a MIDI too, which is pretty cool, but yeah, those are your outs for your speakers. USB in, this is your phantom power on and off. If you're not familiar with that, that's a whole other conversation. If you're someone who only needs 1 or 2 things, take into consideration something like the UR22. Focusrite makes 2 input interfaces. Almost every company out there that makes audio interfaces of any kind makes a simple 1 or 2 input interface. Most of them start at 2 inputs. So take that into consideration. This one was about $100 about 11 years ago. I've had it for a long time. It works great. It was my small interface for many, many years. If you're someone who is using Mac specifically and you only need 1 or 2 channels, definitely take into consideration the Apogee One. The Apogee One is a single channel interface that has these breakout cables that come with it that have an XLR and a 1/4 inch. You choose which one you need at a time. It also has a built-in microphone. The internal parts, the internal workings of it, pretty amazing, great sound. Apogee is known for incredible audio quality, and this is no exception. But single channel interface, less than $100, this will do the trick. So if you're someone who only needs 1 or 2 channels to get going, something like the Steinberger UR22 or any of the Focusrite products that are 1 or 2 channel, or PreSonus, all of these companies make a small thing. Those are great options if you're using Mac. Apogee stuff works phenomenally. You have no issues. Phenomenally a word? It sounds silly. Anyhow, those are great. Focusrite stuff with Mac, completely plug and play, no driver issues or anything like that. That's another thing you need to make sure when you get the interface you need or you want, make sure that it's compatible with the system you're using. So look at what your current model of computer is and look at the interface you're interested in, make sure they're compatible. Do a little bit of research, read, make sure everything works properly, because you don't want to buy something that doesn't work with your system and be stuck with it. Let's say you want to record a whole band. Let's say your goal down the line is to create a fully functional studio. You're gonna need something with more than 2 inputs. So for that, there are tons of options out there. Same companies making all of these bigger products too. So Presonus, Focusrite, so on and so forth, all have 8-channel interfaces. Some of them even have 16-channel interfaces depending on what you need. So that's also a thing to take in consideration. If you're recording a full band, you're gonna need at least 8 channels, especially for drums. You're gonna need at least 8 channels just to do drums, right? Some people are getting away with the 3 mic thing, but not you. If you are someone who's really taking it seriously, you're gonna want at least 8 channels. So moving from there, now that we've decided on which interface you're using and whatnot, we're gonna work our way into software. Software can be daunting. There's so many options. There's so many different little things that are to them. Some of it can look very intimidating. So my suggestion would be to download a few of the free trials of things and see what you like and what you don't like, what thing feels natural to you. And if something feels good to you and you feel like you can get going with it without a lot of effort or even assistance, like you can do the basic play, record functions, and copy and paste and all that stuff, and that stuff all feels comfortable to you, then I would make my choice to be that thing that works for me, and I would head over to places like YouTube here and start researching that piece of software, find things and tutorials that will help you learn more about it. Mac has a couple of things that are specific to Mac. So you have GarageBand, which is free, that comes with Mac. It's also available on the smartphones from the iPhone or the iPad. You can get a version of GarageBand that's very functional as well. But the fully functional version that's on their bigger hardware pieces, laptops and desktops, incredible software. It gets underestimated so much because it's free, but you can record at the same bit rates as any other professional software. Lots of records are actually recorded on GarageBand. There's a lot of things that you've heard that you enjoy out there that were recorded on GarageBand. There was some Thrice stuff that was recorded on GarageBand during the Alchemy Index stuff. There's a Grimes record that was huge that was recorded. They just don't. Kanye West has recorded a record on GarageBand. Don't sleep on GarageBand if you're someone who has a Mac and you want to start recording. You don't need to buy software immediately if you have a Mac and you're doing it. If you're running PC, there are so many free software options that you can look into. My main suggestion would be Reaper. Reaper is free, and the professional license of Reaper is like $50, at least it used to be. Fantastic piece of software, equally flexible, easy to get going. It's also something that can expand into being an incredible digital audio workstation for fully functional productions, and it's something I would recommend highly. But you also have options that work between both platforms. So Reaper will work on a Mac and a PC, Cubase, Mac PC. Pro Tools, of course, Mac PC, Linux, whatever you're running. Pro Tools is everywhere. It's expensive. That's the one downside. Yeah, there's just a lot of options. There are plenty of things out there, so just do some research, find the piece of software that feels good to you and that works for the system you're using, and if you find one and that feels good to you, start doing the research and learning how to use it. Moving on from there, once you've chosen the piece of software you'd like, obviously you're going to want to hear it. You're going to want to hear your finished product or the thing you're working on. So a nice set of headphones, a decent set of reference monitors are your next requirement in order to get going. Tons of cheap options for monitors out there. KRK, Yamaha, Presonus makes speakers now. Samsung makes speakers. There's so many companies out there that make affordable, entry-level studio reference monitors. My suggestion and my personal taste is something that's flat responses. You can usually get a pair for a little under $300 US. So that is another thing. Headphones, plenty of good headphone options. Here is the secret to mixing, in my opinion, and this is something that will come in handy. use your headphones from your cell phone, the ones that come with your phone. Use those for mixing if you have them. And I know that sounds stupid to someone who's like, well, I need something really nice. It sounds great. It's a flat response. Yes, you do. Get those two. Get something like a biodynamic headphone. Get, a nice set of headphones, AKG, sure, something like that. Get something great for professional audio recording and mixing. Fantastic. Use your iPhone headphones. Use your Android headphones, your Google phone. Use the ones that come with your phone. Because most people are going to be listening to mixes on their phone these days. So having those is a great reference for what it will sound like when it goes into those, because that's what people are going to be listening to it on. They're either going to stream it through Bluetooth to a Bluetooth speaker of some sort, or they're going to be listening to it in earbuds on their phone as they're working out or their work, whatever it is they're doing. More often than not these days, that's how music is consumed. So I would keep those and I would use them for referencing your mixes. So that's really it. That's the basics. What are you doing? What's your goal? What type of computer are you using, or tablet, PC, Mac, iPad, so on and so forth? What interface are you using? How are we getting the audio into our piece of software? How are we recording? What piece of software are we using to record the audio that's coming into our computer? And lastly, what are we using to hear and reference the audio coming in to our computer? So that's it. That is the short and sweet of it. Like I said, I'm not getting into a ton of detail. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. I went to college for audio engineering, so I know some of this stuff. I'm also still learning. I always feel like I'm learning because it's changing so much. The skills and capabilities of people on the internet these days, it's mind-blowing, especially if you're something on YouTube. Like, there are things like, oh, I think I have a good feel for that, and then you find someone who's like 12 doing something 10,000 times better than you. So until next time, it's been me. It's been you. This is Gear Stuff and Things. That's a wall. It's kind of gray, but in real life it's a little more blue than gray, but the lighting, meh. Bye.